All right, it is time to talk about Bernie Sanders' CNN town hall. Before I do that, I have to be fair. I need to say Andrew Yang. And the reason I need to bring up Andrew Yang is because the last time I did a video on Andrew Yang, I started it off about Bernie Sanders and his Fox News town hall, which I meant to do a video on, never got around to. Time just kind of slipped away from me. Bernie Sanders killed it at the Fox News town hall. And then I went on to talk about Andrew Yang's CNN town hall. And some of you called me out on that, saying, well, why'd you start this off with Bernie Sanders? So to be fair, this is a video about Bernie Sanders, but I'm talking about Andrew Yang for just a second. Would love to see him in another CNN town hall. Okay, now that we've got that out of the way, Bernie Sanders and his CNN town hall, love the guy. He said the same things that he's always been saying for the last 40 years, which is why he's so darn lovable, not to mention the things he actually talks about, which are fantastic for people, which are the policies we should be having. Bernie Sanders is usually on point most of the time. Love it. The only time that they've been trying to get him recently on his being a millionaire, which, why are they asking him this question? The question is being asked because there's some kind of narrative going on that if you believe in policies that are for the working class, that you therefore don't believe that there should be such a thing as millionaires and billionaires. And that is just not true. No one is saying that you can't have millionaires and billionaires. I mean, if you look at even the Scandinavian nations, which are very have very large, robust social programs for people, they still have millionaires and billionaires. They still do. That's where IKEA came from. That's where a lot of big brands came from Scandinavia. They come from Scandinavia. So this whole kind of idea that, well, if you're for all of these programs for the people and if you're for high taxation, then you can't possibly be a millionaire. No, that's not what Bernie Sanders is saying. He's a millionaire and he's agreeing with high taxation. I hope one day I'll be a millionaire. When I'm a millionaire, I will be taxed. I support higher tax. Look, right now I'm paying $500 a month in student loans. Why not just tax me instead? How about that? I mean, what's the difference to me? So taxation, a lot of people are for it. It's not that big of a deal for many people. They say, hey, look, it keeps our society functioning. It makes us have, we end up with a nice society. So when they're asking him that question, that's essentially what they're saying is they're trying to say that he somehow supports wealth distribution, wealth equality, which is not what these social programs are all about. Beyond that, the one thing I really want to talk about, because Bernie does say the same things over and over and over again. And by the way, Bernie Sanders is the front runner. If you don't think he's the front runner, you need to go stand yourself in front of a mirror right now and have an honest conversation with yourself about being honest. Bernie Sanders is the candidate to beat. I know that Joe Biden is jumping into the race tomorrow, but it's Bernie time. And Bernie is the guy. He's going to, I think he's probably going to end up with the nomination. And good, much deserved, as long as the establishment doesn't try to get him like they always try. So the one thing that really stood out to me, which stood out to everybody during this town hall, was his answer on voting from prison. Prisoners, felons getting the right to vote. And I never had thought about this in this context. I always had agreed that once you're out of prison, you should absolutely gain your right to vote back. That maybe you lose it while you're in prison, but once you're out of prison, yeah, you should be able to vote. And that it is disenfranchising of people, and it is a form of voter suppression to tell people that they can no longer vote once they become a felon. But Bernie Sanders actually changed my mind towards his way of thinking, which is I now agree that, yes, if you're in prison, you should still have the right to vote, that we should never strip this right from any American unless maybe they've been convicted of treason. I mean, I think it would have to be something serious, like you're an enemy of the state, in order to lose your right to vote. Otherwise, listening to him, I agree. Here's the clip.
If somebody commits a serious crime, sexual assault, murder, they're going to be punished. They may be in jail for 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, their whole lives. That's what happens when you commit a serious crime. But I think the right to vote is inherent to our democracy. Yes, even for terrible people. Because once you start chipping away and you say, well, that guy committed a terrible crime, not going to let him vote. Or that person did that, not going to let that person vote. You're running down a slippery slope. So I believe that People who commit crimes, they pay the price. When they get out of jail, I believe they certainly should have the right to vote. But I do believe that even if they are in jail, they're paying their price to society, but that should not take away their inherent American right to participate in our democracy.
Yeah. I mean, look, once you take that right away, it's really difficult to get it back, as we've seen. And in fact, in our nation, we've never been very quick to give the right to vote to anybody. It's not actually built into our Constitution to have the right to vote. And I think if we change anything, I know a lot of people are talking about things like expanding the Supreme Court and the Electoral College and all this other nonsense, which I think is nonsense. But for what I don't think is nonsense is if we were to have a serious conversation about adding voting rights into the Constitution, it's not there. We have had a history. You know, it started off with you had to be a white landowner. Then they allowed African American landowners, males. Then they started to allow, then they were like, okay, well, if you're a woman, then I guess you can vote. We've had all of these different layers of granting people the right to vote. We disenfranchise people. It's done for very strategic reasons. And, after thinking about it more, look, it's a good strategy if you're, let's say, part of the South and you don't want African Americans to be voting. So what do? You create reasons to throw them in jail. And then they lose their right to vote. And it's that easy. And it shouldn't be that easy. And we should say, look, they're in prison, but they still have the right to vote. They've lost their freedom, but we still give them health care. We still treat them. Many of them are still getting education. They're still getting basic human treatment. And part of basic human treatment here in America should be the right to vote. So that is something that should be added into the Constitution. And I agree with him that this is a form of voter suppression and it needs to end. We need to radically change our voting system in America, not necessarily the actual systems like how, us being a federation and some certain direct democracies voting for certain offices directly and others not so directly, but really, truly changing the voter suppression, getting rid of gerrymandering, voter ID laws, a variety of different things that we do in order to suppress voters. Transgender people are dealing with a lot of voter suppression because if they outwardly express a certain gender that has not been changed on their ID, sometimes they're denied the right to vote. We need to be changing these laws. And Bernie Sanders convinced me on this. Felons, if they're American citizens, absolutely should have the right to vote from prison. And I get it. This means that there's going to be some really bad people, abhorrent people voting that we were just like, wow, you're really somebody I don't really like voting. But you could say that about pretty much a lot of people that, you're an idiot. You shouldn't even have the right to vote, which we've done, right? We've said that. We've said to people, well, if you can't read or write, then you don't get the right to vote. We've done a lot of different things in order to prevent and to justify people not having the right to vote. And I think it's time to end that. We need to make this a constitutional amendment. We need to ensure that everybody has the right to vote if they're an American citizen. And Bernie Sanders totally changed my mind on that. I agree with him. I'll fight for this.